Hey guys, Huzz here bringing you another video. Now today's extra video is kind of a story time, if you will. It's not really anything to do with League of Legends, but it is to do with gaming. And the story basically is going to be talking about what gaming I've done over the years, but more importantly, what hardware have I used. The reason for it is earlier today, I got this new gaming laptop, and I will say there is going to be a video on this in the next couple of days. But I got this, and it reminded me of what I used to game on. And I was reminiscing with my dad, and we were kind of going, remember when I used to game on that thing? We both were laughing. And I kind of thought, if I made a video talking about this and saying the story of what I used to game on, I'm hoping it helps some of you at home. The reason for it is, hopefully when you hear my story and you hear the progression of the gear that I've had, hopefully you'll see or be hopeful towards your own future. Because trust me, when I tell you what I used to game on, some of you might have familiarity that, you know, you're under 5 frames per second in some places, a terrible computer, and then eventually you work your way to where you are now. So I just thought I'd talk about it. And again, this isn't anything to do with, you know, showing off or anything. I'm literally going to just talk about how and what I went through each stage to hopefully help people, because I know it sucks, and trust me, you're going to hear. I've been there when I was the guy with the worst computer, but now I'm the guy with the best computer, and it gets there. You know, you can get there if you work hard towards it. So anyway, let's begin. So just to say, I was born in 1994, so that makes me 22 years old. I'm going to be 23 later this year. And I was born into when gaming was kind of growing a lot. You know, in the late 90s, early 2000s, gaming was starting to become quite big. But it was more console gaming than anything else. Game Boy was massive when I was like 3 or 4. Then PlayStation became, and then PlayStation 2. So that's what I was. You know, I wasn't a computer gamer. That wasn't really a big thing back when I was growing up. It was more console, more handheld, and that was the same with me. Fast forward down the line, so yes, I went PlayStation, PlayStation 2. Fast forward a little bit, I went to Xbox 360. And that was great. You know, I was a massive Xbox gamer, still wasn't really a computer gamer. I wouldn't call myself one until, actually prior to this, there was a game that kind of piqued my interest. And it was called RuneScape. Now, everybody probably is familiar with this game. And in Britain, at least, I'm not sure with other countries, but every single school tended to be either you're a RuneScape school or you're not a RuneScape school. Either everybody played RuneScape or nobody played RuneScape. My school that I grew up in when I was like, I don't know, in year 5 or year 6 in primary school, it was definitely a RuneScape school. Everybody played it. And this would have been, you know, early to mid 2000s, maybe 2002, 2003. Everybody played it. Everybody literally played RuneScape, and it piqued my interest in computer gaming. I enjoyed it for whatever reason. I have no idea. Really enjoyed it. Liked the experience of being on a computer, and yeah, that kind of happened. Moving down the line, I was still very much an Xbox 360 gamer, playing Call of Duty and stuff like that with my friends after school every day. But then, you know, because I had the RuneScape background, and I was like, oh, that was kind of fun. One of my friends started playing a game called World of Warcraft, and I was like, oh, what's it about? And the guy basically said it's basically RuneScape but 10 times better, and I was like, okay, I'll have a look. I downloaded the trial on a laptop, and I will talk about the laptop in a minute, and I was hooked. Like, from moment one, I remember the first thing I made was a Night Elf Hunter, and it was amazing. The first thing I did randomly, I did the starting area of the Night Elves, which is in Darnassus, whatever, and I somehow made my way to the Dwarf starting area as a Night Elf. I still don't know how I did it, but I did. And I was hooked, and I was like, I have to play this game. The problem is, the laptop that I downloaded World of Warcraft on was a rather old machine. And now, back in this would have been around 2006 to 2007, around that area. So World of Warcraft was definitely in the Burning Crusade at this time. The laptop that I had was probably a laptop from about 2002, and it was the family laptop. Again, these are the early 2000s. Everybody having your own laptop in a house wasn't really a thing yet. You mainly had a computer that your whole family used, and that was it. This was, at one time, in the first few years of us owning it, the family laptop. If you needed to go on the internet, this is what you used. So it kind of got beaten up over the years, and because we had a new one, or my dad had a new one, this one, nobody used it anymore. So I was like, oh, I'm going to claim this laptop. The problem was, it was pathetically bad, and it was also held together with tape. It was actually in that bad of a condition, and I was like, It's the only thing I can use. That's what I'm going to use. Luckily, at the time, and it's still to this day, World of Warcraft is not that an intense game. So even though it was not a gaming laptop, because again, gaming laptops didn't really exist back then, it could run World of Warcraft. And when I say run, maximum I would have got was about 20 frames per second, and in some cases maybe 2 to 3 frames per second. And I will tell you a small story very soon. But anyway, I played this on this laptop. And my friends, and again, World of Warcraft is a very community-orientated game where you meet people from around the world, you talk to them on communications in order to progress. I did eventually join a guild, and I did eventually get into a raiding group with this laptop, which I still don't know how, and I was dubbed, or this machine, the laptop was dubbed the vacuum, because the fan, obviously this is not a gaming laptop, the fan noise that this machine made was ridiculous, and apparently in my microphone all you could really hear was a whoosh sound like a vacuum cleaner, but that was actually my laptop. And just to tell you a small anecdote with how bad this laptop was, if anybody's played World of Warcraft, this at the time was in the Wrath of the Lich King, and the city of Dalaran was the main capital where you had to go do stuff. You couldn't avoid not going to Dalaran in World of Warcraft at this time. You had to go trade in tokens for gear and get quests and stuff. So I teleported into the city using a magic portal, of course, and the game would just freeze. Like I could go AFK for 15 minutes and it still hasn't loaded. Anyway, eventually it would load, and I could barely see anything, but because, you know, my guild and everything, you work together. My guild leader at the time was a gentleman named Jones, very nice man. He had a mammoth mount that you could fit multiple players on it. So he'd run up with the mammoth. I'd say to him, okay, I'm in Dalaran, it's loaded. Come pick me up. So he'd go to Dalaran, he'd go next to the door, I'd right-click on his mammoth, and he says, okay, you're on my mammoth, I'm going to go run to where you need to be. So I'm on his mammoth, he runs to where he needs to go drop me off, and he used to just kick me off the mammoth. Because on my screen, we haven't moved yet. It hasn't loaded. So he kicks me off, and then probably about 20 minutes later, boom, my laptop has finally caught up, and then I can go get my gear, I can get the quest, whatever it needed. We needed to do that at least twice a week, and he did that every single time for a good amount of months. Like that was just a regular thing, and that is how bad this laptop was. In certain raids, and one of my friends, Kirby, he actually had the same problem. I was a healer at one stage. Luckily, I used an add-on called Healbot that I could just go on a little UI, but I, put it this way, had to look at the floor in some fights just to get through the fight, because if I actually looked at the boss with all the spells going on, my laptop would crash. So this is where, by the way, this is where my computer gaming start has begun. So bottom of the barrel, laptop that was overheating, the fan was crazy, was held together with tape. This is where I started. So this is why I'm doing this story, is to show you where you can start and things do get better. So just to kind of say, the next point of the story is my dad had his own laptop. It was a work laptop. It still wasn't a gaming one, obviously. My dad's not a gamer. But it was a Dell. From memory, it was a Dell Inspiron 15 something. It was still a pretty bad laptop, but it did the job that he needed, which is, you know, work, emails, internet browsing. And anyway, I asked him, which was probably a bad idea by him to accept, can I borrow your laptop occasionally in the evening if you're not using it, just to play a game? And he was like, yeah, sure, why not? That did turn into pretty much every single night, taking his laptop, exchanging mine for his. So in the day, if I was playing World of Warcraft, I'd use my terrible laptop, but in the evening for raids I'd start to use his. Now this laptop, it would no longer got to, you know, maximum 20 frames per second. It got to maybe 50, and that was a massive improvement. I was like, oh, I got 50 frames per second. I can actually look at the boss fight. Sure, it's still kind of bad when I'm looking at the boss, but at least I can see what's happening. So that was a major step in the right direction. But after, I would say, after about a year of doing this, my dad got fed up and was like, I need my laptop. You know, there's been moments that you're in the middle of a raid and you say you can't give me your laptop. I'm going to get you your own laptop. So that's what happened. And I am fortunate that my dad did go out and buy me a laptop. And again, small story about that. I did kind of con him in a way that we were going to PC World. And just to add, I was not a computer boffin at this point. I was still what you'd probably call a jock, a sports jock. I played football, rugby, still to this day. And so I didn't know anything about computers. I didn't know about RAM or hard drive space or graphics cards. I knew nothing. So we went to PC World to buy me a laptop, and my dad said, all right, you have £400 to spend. Go pick something for 400. Anyway, me being me, the person I am, I went up to a laptop and it was 650. It was supposed to be at the time 700, but £50 off from memory. And I was like, I want that one. And he was like, nah, okay. So I twisted his arm. He did get it for me. And voila, I had a pretty good laptop. And this thing, minimum 60 frames per second, didn't really dip. Occasionally, sure, it may have gone to about 40 frames per second, but it was fantastic. It was a HP, again, not gaming laptop, HP, and it did everything that I needed. But one thing that I didn't know is, because again, I wasn't a computer person, I didn't know that laptops get very, very hot. And this was not a gaming machine, once again, and I used it basically as a desktop computer. I didn't use it as a laptop. I had it on a desk, and I played it basically like a desktop computer. And I used that laptop, I'd like to say, for about a year and a half, until... basically, in other words, the fan melted, and I knew there was a problem with it. You know, the first few months was brilliant. It was cool. Sure, it was noisy, but it was brilliant. The frames per second was good. But then I noticed after about a year, the frames per second started to go down a bit, and I was like, maybe I need to get a computer here or something new. And then about a few months after this point, again, remember, I'm a kid at this point. I'm still probably about 15, 16 years old at this point. I'm not old. I don't have my own money. So I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to get something, but anyway. I noticed that the performance was dropping, and eventually I go and decide I'm going to get a new computer. Because again, I'm a kid, don't have much money. I decided I was going to sell everything that I have, basically. Like, again, my parents are very grounded, even though they have, money. It's you buy what you want. If you want something, go earn it. That's very much them. Apart from the first laptop my dad gave me, because he was annoyed that I was using his. And I was like, okay, I'm going to sell my Xbox 360. I'm going to sell the laptop that I'm currently using. And I sold a couple of things, some games that I had. I think I sold my PlayStation 2 that I still had with about 200 games. I sold my Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Like, I sold everything. And when I sold my laptop, I found out, because I used one of these companies that you send it away and they kind of give you a value. I found out that the fan melted. Like, literally, the whole cooling element had gone. They quoted they'd give me about £200 for it, but I only ended up getting about 120. But I still took it, because what else was I going to do with a broken laptop, basically? All in all, when I sold literally everything, because I had a very good Yu-Gi-Oh card collection, I equated it to over about £800 to £900, and I was like, oh, I've got money, woo! And so what I did is I bought myself a computer. And again, at this point, I would have been maybe 16. And, or maybe 16, 17, roughly. And bought myself a computer, and I bought it off eBay. But it was a new one. It wasn't a used computer. It was a brand new one by a company that just sells their computers on eBay. And from memory, it had a GTX 550 was the graphics card, so there kind of gives you the year. If we're on the 10 series, this was over 5 years ago, and I think the graphics card might have been a year old at the time. So yeah, I was about 16-ish, 16, 17, because I'm 22 now, it kind of adds up. And this computer was it. I got this computer, first computer that I've ever owned, not a laptop. It was amazing, it was great. World of Warcraft ran like a dream. Everything was quick. I had now a proper keyboard, and it was a terrible keyboard, terrible mouse, terrible headset, everything. But I had my computer, I had a monitor, and I was like, wow, this is great. How can this get better? And again, I used that computer, and the crazy thing is I used that computer. It was the first computer that I used for YouTube. So I've been doing YouTube now for about 3.5 years. Well, it might actually be coming up to 4 years now. I'm not really sure. It's hard to kind of think when I've actually started. I think it might be coming up to 4, because I think I started in May 2013, if I'm not mistaken, or something like that. So that was the computer I used. I had that computer for about 2 years, and then I began making YouTube videos. And it did well, but again, that thing was not intended to do video rendering, editing. From memory, it had 8 GB of RAM, a basic graphics card. I don't think it has it actually might have had an SSD. But it was a basic gaming computer, and I will say that computer, all in all, with monitor, keyboard, mouse, computer, everything, desktop, monitors, everything was £800. So that's realistic for a lot of you watching this at home. If you are like 15, 16, in a few years, like again, I sold everything that I had of value to get this computer to start my YouTube channel. Like I wasn't thinking about that, but I did sell everything that was worth to me to get this computer. And eventually then, yeah, I wouldn't have started my YouTube channel if I didn't do that, because I wouldn't have had a computer. Anyway, it did well. But again, it wasn't intended to do what I was putting it through. Recording, video editing, and all that type of thing. And I upgraded. I upgraded after, I think, about 6 months of doing videos with it. And at this time, I was not earning a crazy amount, but I saved up, you know, amount that I was making on YouTube. And then eventually, if I can show you, it's hard to angle it. You see that little bit of white? It's hard to see because there's a poster on top of it. But you see that little bit of white there? That is the next computer that I bought. And this computer was a big upgrade. At the time, I think it cost around £1,600 to £1,800. It had, at the time, a GTX 780. It had a pretty good motherboard processor. It was pretty decent, and I used that for 2 years, and it did great. And that handled it. You know, 16GB of RAM. The editing was great. It worked perfectly. But again, whenever you do video editing and all this stuff, you do go through the hardware a lot quicker than if you guys at home were just gaming. And I used that for 2 years. And what, about 5 months ago, three to 5 months ago, I bought my new one. But that one, it still works. It still games. It can still run League of Legends on ultra graphics and still have over 200 frames per second. It's still perfectly fine, and that's why I'm keeping it. When I move out sometime this year, I'm going to have a second setup. If anybody wants to come to my house and game, they can just go on that. Because again, sure, it was struggling. Again, if you've been with the channel for a while, it was definitely struggling near the end. That occasionally the frames per second would dip below 60 frames per second in game in League of Legends. But it's still fine just to game on. Like, it's still perfectly fine. It would probably run most games, like the new releases, probably on medium graphics, which is still perfectly acceptable. And that was the next step up. And then, yeah, we've got to this monster of a machine that I have now that is overkill in every regard. You know, it renders 40-minute videos in 15 minutes. Like, it is a machine that I have now. And that's pretty much the progression. You know, I chose this one because it is my job now. I don't want to upgrade every year and a half. I'm hoping to have the machine that I have now for about 3 years. And yeah, it is a workhorse. It works all day, all night. But that's my progression. Oh, and then finally, we have the new one. We've got my new gaming laptop. So I will say there is going to be a video on this, like I mentioned. But this gaming laptop sparked my mind of the adventure that I have been through with hardware. Because we started, again, just to remind you, we started my gaming adventure with that laptop that was held together with tape, that sounded like a vacuum cleaner, that was on maximum 20 frames per second, but most of the time on about 2 frames per second. And we're now here, you know. And again, a lot of it is just work. You know, a lot of this stuff I wouldn't have if I didn't do YouTube. I wouldn't have if I didn't do YouTube. I wouldn't want to I wouldn't need as powerful PC that I have. And most people watching, you don't need it either. But I wouldn't have this stuff if that one thing. If I didn't sell all my stuff to get my first desktop computer, I wouldn't be here. So sometimes, again, I did this story because it's a lesson, is sometimes you need to sacrifice things in order for good things to happen, but also you need to work for stuff. If you're 15, 16, or even older, and you're just like, oh, I wish I had more stuff in my life, just, you know, stuff, work for it, you know, sacrifice stuff, sell those things, you know, those Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Why do you think I've got a Yu-Gi-Oh card collection now? I don't even really play the game, but it's because I gave them up all those years ago. It feels good to be like, I own them again. Like, it's weird, but I'm like, I've got the money now that it doesn't matter if I buy them. It's like, I've got back and more what I sacrificed all those years ago. And to me, that means a lot. So hard work, dedication is another thing. You know, I did a university degree while doing this YouTube thing, and it worked out. Definitely worked out for me. And yeah, that's my story about all hardware, about the progression of where I came from. You know, I was a console gamer, then a very basic computer gamer, and now we're here. So if you got anything out of this, one, it's the story, but two, you can get there as long as you work towards it. That's pretty much all I gotta say. And you can translate this to your own computer, to your own laptop, but you can translate this to pretty much anything. You know, if you've got a bad car, work towards it. Get a better car. You know, the house, apartment. You can work in life in general. As long as you work towards something, you can try and achieve it. So that's pretty much it. Hopefully, I'll help some of you out. Hopefully, some of you were like, "Oh, damn, Huz used to be me." He worked towards it. He sacrificed some stuff, and now he has a pretty good gaming PC and a pretty good gaming laptop. And you can do it too. Like, trust me, you can do it. So again, if you like this type of thing, and maybe you want more personal stories, because you know I've been through quite a lot, especially in my sporting career. I know a lot of people look at me and go, "That guy never played sport." I used to a high level, but if you'd like more personal stories, then throw a like on the video, and it will definitely encourage me to do it more often. Subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you guys next time. See ya.